students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian. I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here on the west coast of Canada. Hi, I'm Reet. Welcome, members. This is a members chat class. Of course, everybody is welcome to watch. In this class, we're looking at IELTS Task 1 Writing for Band 9 for the academic IELTS. My voice is still a bit off. I'm getting over a flu, so we'll see how far we get. I hope to be able to complete the class. We'll see. We'll go nice and smooth, step by step. Welcome, Pooja. For academic IELTS, check us out at aehelp.com. But if you're learning for general IELTS and you want to see general IELTS Task 1, visit us at gieltshelp.com. On both of our websites, we've got lots and lots of information to help you. This is our academic IELTS website, or sorry, this is our general IELTS website. So for general IELTS Task 1, click this big red button there to join the premium IELTS package. And for the academic IELTS, it's this blue background here. So you can click that big red button there to join the premium IELTS package. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access, and we've still got this discount code that we're promoting this month, Ultimate 9, for a 25% discount. So make sure to use that to save a bit more money. It doesn't cost a lot, and again, it's just a one-time payment for lifetime access. So you get 6 practice exams with audio, speaking, listening, reading, and you get interactive courses, over 100 hours of video lessons for your app on your phone as well. So lots and lots of learning there. Again, Ultimate 9 for that 25% discount. And you can get our apps from your app store, Academic IELTS Help and General IELTS Help. Download those apps, link them to the website so you can use the website and the apps together. And then Instagram IELTS_AEHelp and GIELTS Help. And if you have questions about IELTS or about our products, just send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com. We did release a new video a couple hours ago that is another speaking video. Make sure to check that out. It's a Ukrainian lady who does an amazing job on her IELTS exam. She gets a band 9 for her speaking. So check it out. Hi Oz, hi Rashika, welcome Anar. Students, classes, again, this month we're changing our live class schedule a bit, so classes are longer usually, as long as our presenters aren't ill like I am today. So they're usually 90-minute classes in today's class. This one will probably be closer to an hour, but we will have another class today as well, again, as long as my voice holds. So we have 5 classes Thursday to Saturday, and they're 90-minute classes. Right now we have this Task 1 for our members. We have 5 levels of membership, or 4. So if you want to join the chat for this class, you have to be a member. But coming up in 90 minutes, about a little bit more, we will have an all chat class where everybody will be able to join, and that will be a speaking part 3. That speaking part 3 will continue from yesterday's speaking part 2 class, which was talking about a person that you like to spend time with. Okay. All right. Amrit is asking what's the difference between a band 5.5 and a 6. Amrit, there can be lots of differences between a band 5.5 and a 6. It depends on the writing. It could be spelling, it could be grammar, it could be the content, the accuracy of the information, the structure. It could be the lexical resource, the vocabulary that you're using, or a combination of all of those. So whether you get a 5.5 on your writing or a 6 on your writing really depends on your writing. So that was a question just now by Amrit about what's the difference between a 5.5 and a 6 on the writing. That really depends, Amrit, on your writing. So different people will have a different difference of a 5.5 to 6. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So for the examiners, when they in the IELTS, when they mark your writing or your speaking, there's a lot of criteria. So it's kind of like asking me which question did I get wrong on the listening to get a 5.5. Well, with the 40 questions for different students, that'll be different questions, right? Same kind of idea with the writing. Okay, so keep that in mind. So you have to do an overall good job on the writing. Okay, so next week we're looking forward to some classes again from the 21st. And I'm very hopeful that by that time my voice will recover and I'll be feeling great. I am feeling better each day. So thank you, Chandra, for the wishes there. I see that. And I appreciate that. Okay. So let's get to our writing task 1 right now. So here we are, and I know this is what you're waiting for, and we're going to get right into it. So this is IELTS task 1 writing for the academic. Task 1 writing could be a graph, like a pie chart, bar chart. It could be a line graph. It could be some kind of a diagram or a map. It could be a flow chart. Less common, but I've seen it. Or it can be a table, like what we have here today. So my first tip to you is make sure that you practice all of these different kinds of task 1 for the academic. Again, for general, it's quite different. For general students, it's going to be a letter, like an email. But it is a good idea, especially if you're planning to go to school, to practice the academic one as well. So make sure to practice all these. Or if your job has this kind of statistical or technical elements, and then you should practice it. Okay? All right. And you should spend 20 minutes on this task. Not more than 20 minutes, students, because task 2 is 40 minutes and it's worth 2 times your mark as task 1. So spend 40 minutes on task 2, spend 20 minutes on task 1. Okay. All right. Read the question. Here we go. Read this with me, everyone. The table below shows information about the problems children have in 2 primary schools in 2005 and 2015. Report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. And then here we have our table, and you can kind of see that around me here. And we'll look at that table in a second. It's a good idea to read the title. So percentage of children with different educational challenges in 2 schools. Okay, so task 1 has 4 parts. Okay, for band 9 anyway. Has 4 components. Okay, number 1 is introduction. Number 2 is the overview. Number 3 is the analysis or analyses. Excuse me. And number 4 is a summary. Okay. For number 1, the introduction, all you really need to do is paraphrase the question and add details. Okay, so from the graph. So let's do that. Okay, let's do the introduction. So here we can paraphrase this, use different words. I'm going to paraphrase this, so I'm going to write this. Do the same members, and then I'll compare. I'll let you know how you did, okay? Let's do it together. I'll give you a few moments to do it, and then I'll explain what is paraphrasing what, okay? So, welcome you in to our group of members. That's awesome that you joined. Get right into the chat and the writing, please. And send me an email so I can hook you up with your perks, okay? And I'm writing this for the first time as well. This is not a pre-planned essay, just for all those viewers. So I'm looking at the question up here as I'm doing this, and also I'm looking at the graph, okay? And then I'm thinking about how to paraphrase and put it together. And I'll explain it after what I'm doing exactly, okay? So don't worry about it. Ewan says, I finally joined as a member to say hi. Hi. Huatuan. I know Nguyen's your family name. It's Huatuan, I think. I'm trying to pronounce it. I'm not that good with Vietnamese names. Okay, and so you'll have to teach me. Okay, and so this spreadsheet indicates data collected from 2 elementary schools a decade apart in 2005 and 2015, and gives the percentages of pupils facing certain learning obstacles, and I can always improve. So I'm looking at this word certain, and certain's kind of vague. So when I'm reporting data, precision is the key, right? So I want to be as precise as possible. So the problem areas here, okay, I can see this problem areas, all right? Let me even make that a bit bigger. So there we go, problem areas. So we've got reading 1, handwriting 2, spelling 3, listening skills 4, verbal expression and ideas 5, concentration in lessons 6, and following instructions 7. So there's actually 7 problem areas here, right? Okay, so pupils facing, instead of certain, and I can say 7 different kinds of learning obstacles. Okay, and I'm not going to list them because I'll name them in my essay later on anyway, so I'm not going to spend time listing them. If you do decide to list them, it's okay. It's description, so that's fine. But I think I've got what I need right now. And it's a solid paraphrase. So this is showing the examiner that I've clearly understood the question. And I'm starting to look at the details in the table, right? So here's the word table, as you can see in the original question. And instead of table, another way we can say that is a spreadsheet, right? So tables are basically spreadsheets, especially when they contain data like this. So instead of writing the table, I wrote the spreadsheet. Instead of writing shows, I wrote indicates. Okay. And then I'm not just using synonyms simply, but I'm also paraphrasing the grammar. So here the table shows information about the problems. The spreadsheet indicates data collected from 2 elementary schools. So I've actually brought the concepts of schools a little bit closer to the start here. And then instead of students, it's pupils. Pupils is another way to say students. And then instead of saying just problems, pupils facing 7 different kinds of learning obstacles. Okay, obstacles are problems or challenges that they're facing, right? Okay, so that is my introduction so far. So let me read the original, let me read my introduction, and then I'll take a look at some of the introduction that our members have written there as well. So here's the original. Again, the table below shows information about the problems children have in 2 primary schools in 2005 and 2015. Report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. I paraphrase this as, this spreadsheet indicates data collected from 2 elementary schools a decade apart in 2005 and 2015. Notice how I recognize that there's 10-year gap here, okay? And gives the percentages of pupils facing 7 different kinds of learning obstacles, all right? So that's my paraphrase, giving a bit more detail. So that's the introduction, okay? The introductory paragraph, again, is, let's do with that, is a paraphrase of the question with details. So make sure to add details, super important, okay? All right, Oz, let's see what you have here, my good friend. So let's take a look at what some of our members are putting up, okay? Okay, so Oz writes this. Let's take a look. By the way, you have editing help on our websites as well. So if you go to our websites, you can send essays to get them edited. I'll show you where those are actually real quick. So if you go to your My Student account, when you're logged in, you have these task 1 writing options there where you can choose a question, and then there's a table there, and you can write the table shows, and then dot dot dot, and then you can submit, and then it will ask you to pay, and then once you pay, then you get your work edited. So you can get your work edited there, okay? All right, and the editing looks something like this with comments. Okay, so we look at what you write. So the table demonstrates, because it's singular, Oz, it would be an S there. Okay, so demonstrates data about struggle areas, about the struggle areas that juveniles have in 2 various elementary schools in 2005 and a decade, watch the spelling there, later. Okay, and you can write 7 struggle areas, so that's where you want to be specific, Oz. All right, okay, I see what you're doing, you're saying that later. Okay, so overall there are 7 different problems that pupils face in both of these years. Maybe there's more problems than 7, but it's 7 that they're reporting on. Overall, there are 7 different problems that are reported. In both of these years. Okay, so be accurate with it, but overall that's pretty good, Oz. It's pretty good. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at Pooja real quick. Okay. So Pooja writes, the table illustrates the percentage of students who had problems in 7 various educational categories. I don't think it's educational categories, Pooja, because some of it is education, like reading ability, right? So Pooja, as students, be really careful with what you're reporting, right? Make sure it's accurate. Reading ability is an educational area, yes. Pooja, I agree. But for example, concentration in lessons, it's not an educational area, or following instructions. Okay. So I probably wouldn't write that, because I think it's false information, and false information or wrong information in the academic IELTS does prohibit you from getting those really high band scores, like band 7, 8, or 9. Okay. All right. So you have to be accurate. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so the table illustrates the percentage of students who had problems in 7 various categories. Okay. 7 various categories in 2 different years, 2005 and 2015, for School A and School B. Okay, yeah, School A, School B, that's how they list it. It's capital because they actually name it School A and School B, right? So big S there. Okay, Pooja, it's a little bit simple, but not bad, not bad. All right. Okay. So let's... Anar is asking, how do they count the words? In the computer-based exam, there's a word counter, and in the paper-based exam, they count up like 3 lines, and then they take the average words, and then they multiply it by the number of lines that you wrote. So that's how they do it. Okay. This is Rashika. So Rashika writes, the table illustrates data. You don't have to say the data, just data. About the challenges, reading ability, spelling, listening, verbal expression, concentration in lessons, following instructions, and following instructions that pupils have in 2 primary schools, and then it would be School A and School B, like that. Okay, Rashika. School A, School B in 2005 and 2015. Instead of namely A and B, I see the rest of it, Rashika, but instead of namely A and B, in 2005 and 2015, sure. Okay, all right, so that's the introduction. And then next comes the overview, all right? So for the overview, what you want to do is report the main features. The most observable information. This could be the most and the least. Okay, but not always. So don't just get stuck on had the most, had the least. Okay, it's very common for students to do this, had the most, had the least. And IELTS examiners, for those high band scores, like the band 8, band 9 especially, they like to see information that's not being written by every single student. So if you can see past this, the most and the least, then that's good if it's there. It's not always there. Sometimes it is just the most and the least. But if you can see more than that, then that's great. So first of all, you have to recognize what you're looking at, so what you're comparing, okay? So members, in this case, when we're recognizing our points of comparison, what are we really comparing here? Okay. So Amu, welcome to the class. We've got lots of members in here now. So what can we compare? So in this writing piece, the overview is kind of like our thesis, right? So that's where we basically write down the main idea of what we're going to look at. And then in the analysis, the body paragraph, we look at more details. So we give more information, more sentences. And you have to be careful. So you can't just rush into task one. You have to do a bit of observation before you start to write. That way your essay will be a lot more structured. It will make more sense. It will have better information. So what are we comparing here? We've got a couple points of comparison. What are we really comparing here? Okay. There's a 15 and a 12 behind my head, by the way. It doesn't matter so much right now. My health is okay. My voice is a bit off still today, but I'm pushing through. So, okay. So here, hopefully what you're thinking is, okay, well, what we're comparing here is we're comparing school A to school B, right? And also we're comparing 2005 to 2015, okay? Right? So we can make this comparison, and then we can make this comparison. Okay? Yeah, very good, Amu. A and B. So what do we notice? Okay, so this is where you have to ask then, okay, so sure, we're comparing the schools and we're comparing the years. And you can write suffered, Huey. Yeah, that's another way to paraphrase, sure. Suffering or struggling. Instead of suffering, I think the better word who is struggling. Okay, suffer is painful, and I'm hoping these students aren't in pain. Okay, so struggle is better than suffer. Suffer often indicates like a physical pain, not just a mental anguish. Okay. All right. So, well, first of all, we can clearly notice that school A, there are significantly more students having difficulties in these 7 areas than in school B in both years, right? So when we compare these, in fact, it's multiple. So almost 3 times in a lot of instances. Okay. All right. And then between the years, we can see that there's not a lot of change in some of these numbers in both schools, except for a couple, right? So there's a little change for a couple. Okay. All right. So, and we don't need to get into details in the overview. We just need to mention it so that the reader starts to think about it and so that it makes sense to them once we get to the analysis. Okay. So let me write the overview here. Okay. And you do the same. So based on what we just discussed and what we just saw in the table, write the overview and then we'll compare, okay? Okay, so there is my overview. So after initial observation, it becomes clear that a much higher percentage of students struggle with the reported learning difficulties in School A than in School B. Furthermore, there is little to no change in the percentage of students facing these difficulties in either in both schools in the 2 years reported. Now that's not completely true, right? Because here we do see okay, so we do see that in a couple areas there are some changes, okay? So, but not all of them. So most of them or many of them stay very similar, okay? So I have to adjust it a little bit, but I'm getting there, okay? So here, instead of writing furthermore, there is little to no change in the percentage of students facing these difficulties. There's little to no change for most. In most of these areas for both schools in the 2 years, okay? Now it's much better. Okay, let's see what we have. So Oz wrote this, okay. So Oz writes, to begin with, the first noticeable information, okay, that's redundant, Oz, avoid redundant writing. So to begin with, we can take all that out. Oops. So you can take all that out, Oz. It's just redundant to begin with. So to begin with, School A had markedly sizable numbers of students that had problems in all 7 areas that mentioned compared to School B. So to begin with, School A had markedly sizable numbers of students. These are not numbers. Be very careful, Oz. It's percentage. So it could be hundreds of students or it could be just 10 students. We don't know that. We just know the percentage, okay? So School A had markedly sizable difference in the proportion of students that had problems in all 7 areas mentioned compared to school B. So OSG, if I'm not fixing this, it's like a band 5, okay? Because it's redundant, so you have a lot of unnecessary information here, and it's not accurate information because you're talking about numbers and the table is talking about percentages. So careful not to confuse numbers and percentages, okay? All right, mentioned compared to school B. Okay, and then I'm guessing that you have more here. Okay, careful students with this kind of, like what OSG has here, with this kind of unnecessary information, because you have 150 words in 20 minutes. So if you're being redundant, then you're losing time and words on new and clear information, okay? So careful with this kind of situation, okay? All right, let's see what Amu has. Okay, Amu writes overall. Amu, overall is one word. Overall, it is clearly evident. We don't need clearly. So overall, it is evident that students from school A, you don't need to capitalize that, but you do need to capitalize this. Students from school A have, because it's plural, faced a higher percentage of troubles on learning, when compared to that of school B in both years. Okay, slight grammatical problems. Those aren't huge problems, Amu, but you do have to correct them. So make sure to review for those, okay? With a few parameters remaining stable for both the schools during the years 2005 and 2007. With, we need clarity here in the second half, Amu. So with most, you can say parameters, sure, remaining stable for both the schools in 2005 and 2015. Don't overcomplicate, okay, Amu, so keep it simple. All right, good. So that's good. We're looking good, all right. We've got our introduction and our overview, and now it's time for the analysis. Okay, so in the analysis, first of all, we decided that we're going to compare school A with school B. Okay, so we're looking at these points of comparison. Okay, now you have 150 words, or let's say 200 words, because good essays in the IELTS writing are very, very rarely just the absolute minimum word count. So you have to go a little bit above the word count, the minimum word count. The minimum word count is 150 words. You should be aiming for about 200, maybe even as much as 220 words. But even in 200 or 220 words, you cannot discuss all of these data points, okay? It's really important. Don't try to discuss all of these data points because you will run out of time. So you can only look at kind of the main points, the most important points. And that's why the question, so task 1, it always says compare, it says report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So it doesn't say compare all the points given to you by the table or the chart, right? Okay, so you don't need to do that. All right, so let's take a look at the most important comparisons. All right. Well, we can kind of see that the difference between school A and school B is anywhere from a factor of over 2 to as much as a factor of 7, right? So here we can see that there's 7 times more students having a problem following instruction in school A than school B. And the least difference, here we have 6, right? And the least difference is maybe in these 2 points here, verbal expression of ideas, where it's still more than 2. Okay, so it's like 2.5, right? So that's what we notice first of all. So these huge differences, okay? So we want to report that, okay? So my first point of comparison could be this here, okay? Where I'm comparing this following instructions. There are 7 times greater percentage of students having this difficulty in school A than school B. And there are 6 times, so maybe 0.2 here, having difficulty with spelling in school A and school B. And this big difference can be observed in the other areas as well, with the smallest differences being in verbal expression of ideas and concentrating in lessons, where it's slightly over 2 times as many. Okay, so that would be my point 3. So let me show you how I would write this, okay, comparing school A to school B first, and then comparing the years, okay? So I'm really only focusing on the most significant information. So I'm not going to pay attention to all the little comparisons like reading ability or handwriting, okay? All right. So here we go with the analysis, okay? So let me make a note for you here for the analysis, okay? So the analysis, or analyses, plural, is a selection of 6 to 8 points for discussion, rank ordered from most to least important. Okay, and keep in mind that band 8 and 9 essays are roughly 200 to 220 words in length, but do not try to include all points for comparison. Only the important points. Okay? All right. So having said that, let's write these points. Members, keep writing. So if you have a way to write these points, go ahead, write them. Okay. All right. I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to start now. Okay. So in 2005, comparing these two schools, it is significant let's rephrase this. So in 2005, comparing these two schools, there is a factor of more than 7 times as many students struggling or facing challenges, because I've used struggling, facing challenges, following instructions, right? In school A than in school B at 42% and 6% respectively. This is the most profound difference. However, there are significant differences in spelling, also with 6 times the ratio of students having this issue in school A. Okay, and now my point 3, right? So point 3, verbal expression of ideas and concentration in lessons. Even the smallest differences of concentrating in lessons and verbal expression of ideas is more than twice the percentage. Thank you, Amrit, for the super chat donation. I see that and I appreciate that. That's awesome. Okay. So it's more than twice the percentage of students in school A as school B than school B. Okay. And that's lots. So if I look at that, that's 87 words. Just those 3 points of clear comparison, it's 87 words, okay? And that's lots, right? But it definitely gives clarity on what's going on here. So now I want to compare the years, okay? When I compare the years, right, we can again look at just the important points. So if I look at concentrating in lessons, that gets up to be quite a bit lower. Following instructions becomes much better as well in school A. In school B, it actually becomes worse. And here it stays the same, right? A lot of these numbers kind of stay the same with some slight changes or improvements in school A. So school A is improving a bit. School B is kind of staying the same. And school A with these 3 kind of stays the same, right? So that's what I want to report. The most interesting or the most significant are the changes. They're always the changes. So these are the most important. Okay. And then school B, the lack of change. Okay. Or the actual increase here. Okay. And then if I still have time, I can write about this here. So these would actually be, of course, points 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so for the second paragraph. So let me show you how I would write this. Okay, and you can break this into 2 paragraphs because you're looking at comparing the schools and then you're looking at comparing the years. You can write these as 2 shorter paragraphs. In fact, I would prefer it that way. So if I'm your examiner, I would like to see these as 2 paragraphs because it makes it easier for me to realize that you're switching into a different perspective. So rather than looking at the schools, you're now looking at the years. Okay. Okay, so when comparing the years, School A has improved in concentration in lessons and following instructions. Instructions as less than half the students reported this challenge as compared with a decade prior at 18%, right, for both. Right up there. %, for both. On the other hand, notice the way I'm joining these. So on the other hand, School B actually worsened as twice as many of their so twice the proportion, not many, because we don't know how many students. Okay, twice the proportion of students reported having difficulty following instructions. Okay, and then now we can say that School A also made improvements, or the School A student body also made improvements in listening skills and verbal expression of ideas. Verbal expression of ideas and listening skills, right? We can see that 35 to 20 and 35 to 21. Okay. Notice how I'm not writing lots of percentages, and we don't need to because your goal is to interpret the data in the table. Okay. And spelling. As where School B kind of stayed the same, right? I think they didn't change much. In fact, they got worse. As where, again, school B either remain the same or increased in percentage. Okay. All right. We want to be concise. Okay, so now I have another 85 words. So just in my body paragraphs here, I already have 150 words without looking at all of that data or all of that information, right? So now if I'm really pushing for that band 9, what I want to do is I want to write a summary. And the summary is not a conclusion, okay? Do not write a conclusion. Okay, a summary is simply a clear point that we can take away from observing the data. Okay, so what can we take away from the data? Well, clearly school A is making some improvements. School B is decreasing, right? So that's what we can summarize after we've finished all of this. So in summary, following detailed analysis, it becomes clear that school A has improved the proportion of students having problems in their school, while school B has worsened. Nevertheless, school A still has a much higher percentage of students facing difficulties, right? So we don't want to start thinking that, hey, school A is doing so great, because yeah, school A is improving, but even in 2015, we can see that school A still has a much higher percentage overall of students having difficulties, okay? So that's what it looks like. And Rashika, I see your writing. I'm just trying to save my voice here a bit, but it's good writing, okay? So focus on the comparisons here. All right, so now I have my full essay, and I'm going to put it all together, okay? So let me write the full essay here at the bottom. I'll stick it all there so you can see it all in one kind of, and I think it's about 220 words roughly. So a band 9 level student will be able to produce this amount of writing in 20 minutes. Okay. All right. A lot of information in this table, a lot to compare. So here we go, students. Just follow with me. Listen to my raspy voice as I read this. Okay, so the table below shows information about the problems children have in 2 primary schools in 2005 and 2015. Oh, sorry, that's the question. I think I'm missing my, I'm missing my introduction here, so let me just grab that somewhere. Yeah, there it is. That's what I wanted. But it's okay. We have the question there too. So All right. Now we're good to go. Okay, so this is the essay for this. So this spreadsheet indicates data collected from 2 elementary schools a decade apart in 2005 and 2015 and gives the percentages of pupils facing 7 different kinds of learning obstacles. After initial observation, it becomes clear that a much higher percentage of students struggle with the reported learning difficulties in School A than in School B. Furthermore, there is little to no change in the percentage of students facing these difficulties in most of these areas for both schools in the 2 years reported. In 2005, comparing these two schools, we don't need that because we know that we're comparing these schools, okay? So in 2005, there's a factor of more than 7 times as many students facing challenges following instructions in School A than School B, at 42% and 6% respectively. This is the most profound difference. However, there are significant differences in spelling. Also, with 6 times, we don't need also. We want to be concise. With 6 times the ratio of students having this issue in School A. Even the smallest differences of concentrating in lessons and verbal expression of ideas is more than twice the percentage of students in School A than School B. When comparing the years, School A has improved in concentrating in lessons and following instructions, as less than half the ratio of students reported these challenges as compared with a decade prior at 18% for both. On the other hand, School B worsened as twice the proportion of students reported having difficulty following instructions in 2015. School A made improvements. We don't need the also. Made improvements in the percentages of students having troubles with verbal expression of ideas and spelling, as where School B either remained the same or increased in percentage. In summary, following detailed analysis, it becomes clear that School A has improved the proportion of students having problems in their school, while B has worsened. Nevertheless, School A still has a much higher percentage of students facing difficulties in 2015, for clarity. And now we have a better analysis. Amu, my voice, I'm kind of losing it. So, but we're coming to the end. We're finished. So I'm going to drink a hot tea, get ready for the next class. Hopefully I can fix my voice a bit. We'll see. It's the last class of the week, so I want to do it. Okay, so I'm going to be back in about an hour. I'm going to take an hour rest here. So I'll be back at 7:30 for the next class. In that time, check out the latest speaking video. We have a new speaking video up on our website and also on our YouTube channel. So check those out. This is aehelp.com. If you want to see videos where I have my good voice, this is where you want to go. Click on the Join Now button. Use the code Ultimate9 Ultimate9 for a 25% discount there. And again, General IELTS. General IELTS students, you can get Task 1 editing on General IELTS as well. So remember, I showed you that if you go to your My Student account and you want to work on a Task 1, you can click there and then click a question, see a line graph question, and then you can say this line graph depicts, and off you go. So lots of Task 1, Task 2 writing that you can practice on the websites. Again, the websites are aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. So check them out. Thank you, members, for being in the class. Thank you for your support. That was awesome. Thank you for putting up with my raspy voice. And thank you, Huyetuan, for joining our group of members. Hopefully I'll see everybody in about 50 minutes for speaking part 3, where we will look at speaking part 3 questions, answers, and then we'll keep learning, keep improving our English for success. I'm Adrian. I'm signing out from Victoria for now, but I'll be back with my raspy voice in 30 minutes. Bye.